Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of the LoL Roundtable here at onGamers. I'm Hunter Lee, and Travis is joining me from Santa Monica. Hey Travis.
Hey Hunter, I'm a little bit rougher today because I'm a little sick right now, but you know what I'm never sick of? Talking about esports.
There you go. League of Legends specifically today. And joining me in studio is Spellsy. How are you?
Hi, good.
Good, great. So we're going to start with EU playoffs wrapped up over the weekend. As I predicted, Alliance, Fnatic, and SK advanced to Worlds. Spellsy, what were your thoughts on the games?
I thought they were fine. There was a lot of Alistar top, and kind of like this tanky top meta has really taken over. And then other than that, it's kind of classic EU style, kind of slow, low kills, Alliance really snowballing their leads.
Yeah, I thought the games were pretty entertaining in general, but there was a lack of sort of key highlight plays. Alliance seemed to win with team victories, not necessarily Froggen carrying them as hard as you saw him do in the earlier rounds. Alliance looked really good. That was a pretty convincing win over Fnatic, in my opinion. Travis, what were your thoughts?
I just thought it was interesting that it all sort of fleshed out the way we all expected, except for Spellsy, who predicted Roccat. But for the most part, you know, like the favorites won, and it's just sort of interesting because there's in NA, I think there's still a lot of people who are like, hey, maybe Dignitas could win, maybe like TSM or who's going to get in there, and EU was pretty much just set from the start, it seems.
If you're an EU fan, are you happy coming out of this? Are you feeling good about your chances at Worlds?
I think they have the two strong teams, like Alliance looking stronger, and I think it's better to have one strong team going to Worlds rather than the NA style where it's kind of a mix and match kind of thing right now.
Yeah.
So I think EU fans should be happy.
I thought Alliance looked pretty good. And if Fnatic is representative of their skill in the past, Alliance looked just as strong, if not stronger, than Fnatic after that. So that seems good. If I would be feeling pretty confident as Alliance fans going into Worlds. I don't know about SK or Fnatic. Travis, you think this is a setback for Fnatic? Does it show some weakness that other teams will be able to take advantage of?
No, I mean, the first, second place matches are never, I don't think people care as much about those anyway. So, I don't know. I don't think it's as big of a deal for them, or I don't think it's really a setback.
It's certainly true that the gap between third and fourth is way bigger than the gap between third or second and first this year, especially without the bye.
Yeah.
So maybe that did factor in. Fnatic certainly didn't look super great in that series.
Yeah.
Looking ahead to this upcoming weekend, we start NA playoffs then. First round matches. TSM versus Dig and Curse versus CLG. Travis, you'll be on hand doing interviews with winners, losers, or whoever's available. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
I just sort of think there could be some upsets this weekend, which would be really interesting. I don't think that there will be, but I think that there's a far more likely chance of something interesting happening there. So we'll have to sort of see what ends up happening. I do think that the matches will be really hype, and I really hope that they go to like 5 games each, though I'm sure my video producer would like it if we had a shorter day.
All right, so TSM versus Dig.
Yeah.
What do you expect to see?
So I think TSM is going to win. I don't know. TSM is not looking that strong to me, personally. I think Lust Boy Edition hasn't really paid off that well. But Dignitas is just looking so weak, and they always kind of, we did like an article a few weeks ago how they always choke in the playoffs and that kind of stuff. And I think it's hard to choose Dignitas, even though TSM is, I don't think is going to be that strong. Right,
because we talked in the first episode, Amazing was in Europe and they had a brand new support, so it's hard for TSM to get all this synergy. And yet it's Dignitas, and what does that mean? Travis, they are the anti-heroes. Do they stand a chance?
Yeah, those videos, by the way, that Riot is producing are just so strange. They're so far different from anything they've ever done before. I think that they stand a chance. I think one of the big stories going into this week is how long it has been since anyone has seen any of these teams play. And there's so many weird things. I mean, I know we'll talk about them in a second, but CLG going to Korea, you know, TSM, we didn't really get to see much of them with Lust Boy, and then Amazing had to go to Europe. So I think it's really hard to say what's going to happen. I don't think Dig has a really good chance. I'm very surprised by Thorin, who was confidently predicting them going past TSM. But, you know, we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you bring up a good point. It's been a long time since any of these teams have had a meaningful best of 5.
Yeah.
All the way back to Spring Split. Playoffs, even if you consider that particularly meaningful, nearly a year then since some of these teams were in Worlds where there were, or last year's playoffs, since there were really meaningful games. CLG we haven't seen. They took the last week off. CLG versus Curse. Curse on a roll. CLG coming back in what state? Travis, what are your predictions there?
I do think CLG will make it over Curse. Historically, CLG's always beat Curse, and while these are somewhat a different teams than has been the case previously, I do think that we'll see CLG come out on top.
I'm personally rooting for Curse. I don't really know why. I just think, I mean, they are the anti-heroes, if anybody is, like in this. But I think I'm rooting for Curse for sure. Just because of the drama it would create if CLG does this whole expensive move and then bows out, and then you get Curse potentially versus TSM in the third place, fourth place match, and especially and all, like the storylines I think are just really great if Curse wins. And we saw in the Fnatic Alliance series how strong Tristana is right now, and Curse seemed to have adopted that early.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think it's really hard to predict this match because of the whole CLG move. It's like really up in the air. But I think my standing right now, I think I would say like 65% Curse. Because I think they're strong from the end of the season. I think they're kind of a little bit underrated right now. And I think that the CLG move, as we've talked about in previous episodes, might actually be a detriment. Like looking at the Machinima versus show where they filmed them in Korea, they were looking pretty shaky, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to say. The one downside of going to Korea and potentially losing scrims for like 3 straight weeks as you come back, not only are you disjointed, but your confidence is lower. And I know you're a big believer in confidence and kind of morale of a team going into
for their game.
Yeah.
Because it's very like feeling based,
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. I mean, it should be a great weekend of games either way, and set up a lot of great storylines. I think TSM losing, TSM winning, Curse losing, Curse winning, CLG, all of that stuff is really interesting storylines that would go into the next week. So we kind of win-win no matter what. So final topic for today, although we may expand it out a little bit, is we reported on this earlier this week. Travis, you were working closely with Raven on that. The potential cancellation of OGN Winter and Riot's kind of move in Season 5 or 2015 to standardize things across the various regions around the globe. Tell us where we are on that right now, Travis.
Sure. So we posted this article about how there was potentially OGN Winter getting canceled, and our sources had said that this was because of Riot North America involvement. Now, Riot North America, Nick Allen has come out and said that North America doesn't actually get involved in this stuff. They advise Korea, and then Riot Korea, and then Riot Korea has conversations and sort of makes decisions around this kind of thing. So unclear right now, really what the full extent of everyone's involvement is in any of this. But I would bet money at the moment that OGN Winter will be canceled. Now, something interesting that happened too is that this OGN Winter thing was somewhat, it bloomed out of a discussion of all these different rumors and all these people saying stuff over in Asia about how Riot is basically trying to turn OGN into LCS. And we weren't able to confirm anything around that. Although whenever we did post it, the community immediately went, extrapolated from what we were saying. And also sort of had that same concern that this would turn OGN into the LCS, and we don't really have anything along those lines. But I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world if OGN Winter gets canceled. Obviously, it's a little unfortunate, but if that allows us to solve a lot of the problems that we saw this year around world scheduling and all this kind of strange stuff, then I think we still will be a lot better off in the long run.
The cancellation kind of presumes that Riot North America and the LCS is maybe the correct or best format, because you'd be standardizing to that as opposed to pulling LCS or some of the other regions closer to the Korean format. Do you have a preference?
I mean, I think if we speculate and say that Riot is, or NA Riot is trying to push for the standardization in all leagues, I think that is kind of the wrong move. I mean, they have kind of said they want to standardize the scheduling and that kind of stuff, but they haven't really said about the rules. We hear mostly speculation about that. But I think that if they were trying to do that, I think that might be the wrong move. I don't know. I like that each region is different, and even though it's very confusing from the viewer, like I don't know what the LPL playoff format is. Like that's even on Summoning Insight, they didn't really know what it was. So like it's kind of confusing to have all these different types, but I think that they're specialized for each region. I think like if you took Korea out of the kind of tournament system they're in now, I think that would be a detriment to them. I think they've kind of made this format their own or whatever.
Right. Format doesn't have to tie into schedule. you can schedule a format a certain way. They could still do 4
bit.
seasons or whatever and have them end more timely. I think Riot's approach to say, hey, we want Worlds to be the big event and we need things to line up well so that there's a correct and sort of equal path to Worlds. People are on the same patch. They have the right amount of time in between for travel or other things. That seems good. I'm not sure I'm all for getting people onto the same exact format, especially since Riot North America, at least, doesn't have the authority to actually enforce things. We saw this kind of in the CLG fine situation. There's miscommunication between the different areas of Riot, maybe, and then the team ends up in Korea with no things, and then Riot Korea is fining them and applying a ban, but they don't play in Riot Korea, they play in Riot North America and that kind of stuff. The hard part about standardization is that Riot is sort of a global company, but also not a global company, and they've signed away rights a lot of places. That's got to be hard for people internally in North America trying to standardize things.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it, you know, back to your statement around, you know, it presumes that the LCS is possibly the best format. Again, I think it really comes down to scheduling right now. And it's probably, I believe LPL runs on a pretty similar system to LCS in terms of scheduling. So it might be easier for them to pull OGN. And I'm not even particularly sure what the scheduling for Garena is, but it might be easier for them to pull OGN towards LPL, LCS, NA, and LCSU, 3 distinct regions, than the opposite way, you know.
Yeah. I mean, and this comes back, I think this is part of sort of a larger issue that Riot is facing and that we as fans and sort of journalists are facing this season, or right now, is that a lot of things might be changing for next season, which is unusual for traditional sports. Things are mostly consistent, but a lot of things might be changing. EU LCS moving, does that matter or not? I don't know. OGN Winter may be getting canceling, things may be getting standardized. A lot of things may be happening. Are we wrong to expect more access and information about what next year would look like at this point?
Yeah. I think that they are cutting it close, as kind of Riot always does, especially like when they didn't tell where Worlds would be and all that kind of stuff until like a month before all the dates. But I think this is kind of showing. I mean, I think the whole format could be refined a little bit, and I think that they're taking a step towards that, hopefully. But I think that they're also kind of still figuring things out, I think.
Right, which is dangerous in a sense, because it's not that far away. Travis, does Riot need to do something different here, or is Reddit, and are we expecting too much of them
well,
at this point?
I think they're in. So I think ideally they should have released these details, you know, halfway through the last split. So about a month ago, or a little bit over a month ago. I think that would make sense. And if you think about, not that I'm a huge traditional sports follower, right, but it's okay to release stuff really early out. I mean, even the Olympics and stuff, that is all way, 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 way before, right? But I think what happens is for them, remember, this is really only the second year in my mind that they, obviously this is season 4, but this is really only the second year that they've been trying to run all these leagues and sort of fit them all together. And so I think it's hard for them to plan out this far in advance, because it's kind of like building the plane as it's flying or whatever. And so I think what happens is they've probably only recently gotten to the point where they can start to make these decisions.
Right.
And they can't, like, Worlds is happening, right? So they want the conversation to all be around, like, PAX is next week, and you've got Worlds and all that. And so in their mind, I would expect that they'll say, I mean, they've even commented, I think, publicly and said, you know, expect more details after World Finals or World Championships. So in their mind, they're like, okay, we're focusing on Worlds, we'll bring this stuff out afterwards. The problem is that's not really how information works, right? Like, as journalists, we can all sort of comment on the fact that, like, the Berlin thing, I have no idea when they were planning on talking about the EU LCS moving to Berlin, but I would suspect they didn't really have a good plan in place for that kind of thing. At least that's how it feels. And now it's breaking because, of course, like, teams start, like, that's one of the easiest things to have let loose, is everyone's at Gamescom and everyone starts talking about all this stuff, and then suddenly you've got, you know, a Polish outlet publishing information about it. Of course it's going to come out. So, I mean, we were working internally on pursuing these rumors and stuff before it came out as well. So I just think that for them, again, it's just an issue of they need to start getting information out faster, or earlier, rather, and then whenever people start, whenever, you know, they always respond very reactively to these posts after, and there's always like, we've reached out to Riot for comment. I think it's just like, they need to also get used to being able to say something the moment it starts to break as well.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is that we certainly as a community, and speaking as a fan community, want both access and accountability, and you're seeing this really heavily in the Reggie fine situation, where is there an appeals process? Even if there was, who would be running it? Even if it had happened, would we know? I think Riot suffers from not having a official public face, a commissioner, as it were, of League esports. And Nick Allen is sort of in that role, sort of, I think somewhat to his detriment, because I'm not sure how much actual authority he has, and he's getting like doxxed and all kinds of crazy stuff on Reddit these days, and just getting beaten up, maybe without the institutional support to really take that. I mean, Twitter got crazy that Nick Allen somehow personally getting Reggie's fine money and like doing, I don't even know what, like all of this is going to an extreme, but they don't give you any other option. Who else would you look at? I would just sort of humbly suggest that I think having an official public head of esports, and maybe that's Redbeard's role in theory or whatever, who's up there like doing press conferencing type things, taking interviews, answering questions, being a public face. We don't see that, and it's hard to know who to go to or who to be, if you're mad, who to be mad at, if you're happy, like who to be happy at. I've got my pitchfork, who do I point it at?
Yeah.
I mean, this has been something that I really think has needed to happen, especially in this year, and it's become very obvious, is that, you know, Nick kind of is, so I'm trying not to sneeze while I have this very serious
Just go
statement.
for it, man.
No, I think Nick has obviously become sort of this figure, at least for NA and EU, and people are questioning his involvement in the other regions as well. But the bigger problem here is that they don't ever... Riot, I think, tries to be pretty transparent on stuff like this, but the problem is that lately all they've been doing in terms of having these things is you just... Suddenly there's just a post on all esports, and it's like verdict and statement and punishment and blah, 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 right? They don't do a very good job of opening up a dialogue on their reasoning behind the stuff. There's not any video, so ultimately, like, who do you believe? Do you believe Reginald, this guy who's been in the scene for a long time and is doing vlogs and being very honest, or do you believe just this blank statement that's been, you know, decreed down from Mount Olympus? You know, so I think that what would really benefit them a lot is opening up the gates, doing, even if they decide not to do it with journalists, so obviously I'd love to do more interviews with them. They should do probably video content around this stuff. They should have open dialogues, and I think overall just become better at being transparent around these things, because ultimately I think people will just start to, when there's a lack of information, people will create their own. And so if all you're doing is spitting out these rulings and not really saying anything else, people are just going to start to decide, okay, well, clearly it must be because Riot has a vendetta against TSM or CLG, or clearly Nick Allen is just trying to take money and fill Riot's coffers because they're broke or something like that.
Yeah, it's certainly telling this year that a conspiracy thing came up about the Worlds draw, even though there's been a private Worlds draw the last couple years and nobody really complained. Something does seem to be turning in public opinion, at least right now, and it would probably be better for Riot to get out in front of that in some way. I don't know that Nick's the guy. I'm like, I don't know, but it does seem like we're twisting into kind of a weird place right now where suspicion is high and trust is low.
Yeah. We see that with like this Reggie thing still being in the news like 4 or 5 times after. Like, should there be an appeal person? Like, do we really need an appeal person?
$2,000. Yeah.
It's just Riot's kind of needs to be, like you said, I think proactive on this rather than kind of always retroactive.
Travis said that. Good idea, Travis. I think you're right.
I think you guys both said
Finally, a little recognition around here.
Okay.
It's like glasses. Whenever I put them on, suddenly I get a little
I know, you're so much smarter this week than last week. Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks for tuning in. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter B. Lee. Spellsy.
You can follow me at Twitter at SpellsyLOL.
And Travis.
All right, everyone, listen. You can follow me at SOTL Travis on Twitter. I drop the sickest tweets there. It's the place to go. Also, I create a lot of content. For instance, I'll be creating content this weekend, and also at PAX, and then also at Worlds, and that stuff will be at youtube.com/ongamers, but misspelled. It's probably better to just do a search for ongamers on YouTube so you can find it there. But also you can just go to ongamers.com, which will have a lot of that as well. Anyway, I really just want to say that I've appreciated doing the show with you guys this week, Hunter and Spellsy. Hunter, if you want to take us out.
Okay, I'll take us out. We're going to edit out, I think, all of that and probably just reshoot the outro. But in case we don't, that's it for this week. We'll talk to you next week.
Wait. When you introduce me, what should I say? Hello?
Whatever
That's what
you
I've
want.
done, like, awkwardly, I've been like, hello.
You can say hello. You can even say like, "Hey, I'm really glad to be back on the show. How you work?"
There you go. League of Legends specifically today. And joining me in studio is Spellsy. How are you?
Hi, good.
Good, great. So we're going to start...